What is up, guys? So this is going to be probably the last video of this car before it is up and running. I say that because what you see on the ground here is the last pieces that are going to hook on to, the engine bay and restricting this car pretty much from running. We're actually not even going to put this on. We're going to put the crown on probably. But we're not going to put that on just yet. We're going to put the intakes on. And the reason we're not going to put that engine cover on is just because we want to be seeing if anything's leaking, obviously, and if that's on, we won't be able to see that. So that will be off for the remaining time. And the front bumper is sitting back there. It's already painted and everything to match the car. Have the fog lights down here. Actually, these are just the brackets. The fog lights are inside the car. But that'll all be put on after we make sure everything on the car is running fine and not leaking. And obviously, you guys saw this box over here. These are the VRSF catless downpipes version 2 for the car. We're not going to be installing that until after, like I said, everything is fine, because this is going to throw an air code. I did not buy the $99, air code fix. I'll get that later, but I didn't buy that. And so if we start the car, that's going to throw an error code because the cats are gone. So we're going to install that afterward. And unfortunately, right here, if you look, you're going to see, not really, but if you could see, that is the stock radiator still. The reason being is this Mishimoto radiator seems to not be working with my automatic car, because it's made for a manual, and right here is the transmission cooler. Now, what that'll do is it'll actually make this intercooler, this radiator, work with the car. I just don't know exactly what wires to cut, because there's two wires, which I understand what the transmission lines are. There's a box right here. Okay, so that's the box. That's for the transmission, and then there's the two connect. Now the problem I'm having is there's actually a cable hooked up to this side of the radiator, which I do not know what it goes to. And I contacted Mishimoto, and they just said it's a universal transmission cooler that works with any car. They didn't want to provide me any other information. I wanted them, to make a video, maybe for this specific model, being an automatic and all. But they basically said no. So I'm going to see if my mechanic tomorrow is going to be able to hopefully figure that out. If not, I'll either sell it to my friend or see if I could return it, because I'm not really planning on buying a second one of these cars, or 335i in specific, but in a manual. I'm not really planning on doing it, and I do not want to do a transmission swap. But as far as an update from the last video, here I got the little splash shield on. That's bent because this is just a cheap Chinese one, and that just needs to be bent back because this was completely straight down. But since the last video, I did install this side of the brake. Tightened up everything over here too. Obviously, I have this front end on, but notably, this 7-inch upgraded intercooler. This is a VRSF 7-inch intercooler. I did not get the stencil because it was like, I think, $14, and I just didn't feel like spending that extra money just for advertisement, pretty much, If they're not going to include it, I'm not going to buy it. But that is installed now on the car, and I was a little worried about it just because of how much stuff I was going to trim, and I was worried it's going to just collapse. But everything seems structurally sound so far. I did not go ahead and cut this here or up here. I'm going to leave that as is right now, just because I want to keep that little bit of structural integrity. Maybe if the look will bother me, I'll cut it, but right now I think it's fine. And next, I got this HKS blow-off valve installed, accompanied by a VRSF charge pipe here. Currently, I'm installing this oil catch can back here. I'm just needing to do the trimming. That was the spark plug thing, which I'll get to a little bit later. Also, I have reconnected and installed new vacuum lines onto this car right here, or in the engine. That back there was a big problem, because when I put the heat shield on, the actual vacuum line was wedged inside between the heat shield and the actual block, so that was problematic. So I had to get cut up here. You guys can see this was a pretty bad cut. It's healed up now. It's been 2 weeks, but And that really cut me up because I had to squeeze my hand in that crack right there to tighten one bolt. And I'm also missing one bolt, which, I mean, 4 bolts is like how much it has, but 3 I think is enough. So yeah, I had to take that off. And also, since the last time, I did have to lift off or redo the valve cover. And because when I went to O'Reilly's to pick up a spark plug socket here, which is not the correct one, I just want everyone to know, it does have a magnet. This is a spark plug socket, just not for this vehicle. It does not work with this vehicle. What you need for this vehicle is actually a thin wall spark plug socket, which I picked up at AutoZone for about $5. Now, I would not recommend anyone use this specific one when the valve cover is on. This is a good tool when the valve cover is off, because since this doesn't have a magnet, unlike the other one, this came with a rubber ring, which I recommend all of you take off because that might get stuck down there, you know. And but if you have the valve cover off already, go ahead and pick this up for $5. If not, you're gonna have to spend the 20 on just a website, you know, like ECS Tuning or Berger Motorsports, and pick that up. And it has a magnet. But originally, I thought I misaligned this valve cover, so I was just freaking out when I was trying to put that on, because initially I thought that was the correct one, and you know, being in the heat of the moment, I wasn't thinking straight. And so I thought I misaligned that thing, and it wasn't actually the little tool bit, right? Because it's usually never the tool bit, it's mostly human error. But in this case, it was not. So that just all required me to pull this whole entire valve cover here. And in a sense, it was a good thing because I was able to reposition the little coil metal things that are in between the coils and this valve cover. I was able to reposition them properly, and you know, just, I mean, it didn't really do anything, but it kind of aligned this a little bit better. But for the most part, I will say I was quite mad to find out that, I mean, I was sold the wrong, you know, tool bit. Not the wrong part, then the wrong tool bit. You know, that would just never happen. Now, this is not really, you know, newsworthy. It's not really that big of a deal, but I did finally get a red start button, and to be honest, I just think that looks cool. That makes this car look even more race car than it is. Here's the old start button. It's black, and you can see the actual matte finish is kind of faded. You can't really see it, but it has faded. On top of that, this red just looks amazing. And I just want to clarify, I did not pick this up off of Mashimaro's website. This is actually something I picked up at AliExpress, and something I'd recommend because it's the same product for literally $25 less. Next thing is, I found out that a great tool, well, not a great tool, but a great product is Clorox for cleaning, you know, interiors with something like sticky. This part here was sticky. You can kind of see, and this is, or not really, but this is, it has still a little bit of a sticky or texture to it, which I just have to wipe down some more. But this was super heavily coated something, which I could only guess from, you know, the last owner's arm just resting here, because this right here is a perfect, you know, it's perfectly aligned with where this steering wheel's. So when you're in traffic, you literally could just be driving like this, and it's so comfortable, you know. Another small little detail here was right here, you can't really see it, but I replaced it with a little bit of a metal. So instead of this part here being plastic, it's actually the VRSF upgraded metal part. So rather than plastic, I'm not sure if it's going to do anything, you know, too important, but I figured just to pick that up because I would have had to cut this whole ring right here just to make it fit with the new coupling. And I don't know if I want to actually use that in the future, because I do still have the old intercooler down here, and I unfortunately had to just completely destroy the little the connector that connects the intercooler to the actual that pipe. I had to completely destroy that, and I'll have to buy a new one if I ever want to go back to stock. But in this case, I wanted to preserve this part just in case I wanted to use this in the future. So this will be a direct connect. And by the way, if anyone wants to know, this is the alternative to the new upgraded blow-off valve, and those are actually the stock. Those are what comes stock with this car, and I decided to go with the blow-off valve. Those is, I mean, somewhat the same job. I wouldn't recommend it if you want to go, if you're a purist and you want to keep this car, you know, without any hindrance. Well, not hindrance. Possibility of failure is a better word to use, because this is a enclosed system here, and I mean that's meant to be run, you know, as an enclosed system. But this makes a cool sound, and that's why I want it. It's basically because of the sound. This, you know, somewhat the same job, but I'd still, for anyone wanting to, you know, keep a stock, I just not do that, or not do this. I mean, also a small little thing. I did get a new hood hinge here. So this car was actually involved in a front end collision. It was a very minor front end collision. None of the airbags actually went off, but this is what the body shop that this guy took it to did to this thing, and it just would not connect to that. Into that, it was too short. So I went ahead and spent the, you know, $20, which is pretty much nothing when it comes to something like this. But yeah, I spent the $20 and picked that up off of ECS Tuning, and it showed up in reasonable time. I also got a new pipe, or new little vacuum. I don't know if it's a vacuum hose, but it's something. It goes from here to here. And this isn't installed. I got this a few months ago, but I haven't got it installed, and this is brand new. Here's the old one, and I just replaced it because the ends here were getting a little old, and this part here, there's a crack on the actual hose, so that wasn't good. And yes, I actually have been using my old disc brakes to use as a stepping tool, because this car is actually elevated off the ground and is higher than a normal mechanic shop. This makes it a lot easier to reach into far spaces like that. But basically, guys, that is all I have for you today. Hopefully the next video you see is going to be of the car running for the first time. If not, there's something massive that's gone wrong, and I'm probably going to be super disappointed if it comes to that. But I just want to make this video before, you know, I got mad. If something happened, then I was going to go all over, you know, and tear this car apart again. But this video was made on March 9th, 2019 at 10:30 p.m., you know, somewhere in Washington. For anyone watching this 10 years into the future, this is what I was doing on this day at this time.